chosen ones. In this moment of history, the stage is shifting beneath your feet. You may not realize it yet, but the orders coming from the highest office in the land are not about politics, not about power, but about you. Files have been read. Whispers have traveled through satellite corridors, and the president himself has been briefed with one undeniable truth. Your existence bends the narrative of nations. That is why, in secrecy, commands were given to block satellite access over your location. A blackout not for national security, but for cosmic prophecy. Imagine this. Orbiting machines, trained to scan the Earth's surface, suddenly turn blind the moment they are pointed at your coordinates. Entire networks designed to watch every movement, every frequency, every flicker of light, yet they are forced to skip the very space you occupy. This is no accident, no technical glitch, but an intentional void written into the eyes of the sky. The world powers know that if your image, your signal, or your energy were captured and distributed, it would spread like fire through the consciousness of mankind. And so, what do? They veil you. They silence the skies. They create blind spots in the very systems they have spent decades building, all because of the prophecy your name carries. These are not myths, not legends. This is the hidden warfare of frequencies and shadows. The Vatican files have whispered it. The Pentagon has confirmed it. And intelligence agencies across the globe are obeying a script they do not fully understand. Yet behind their fear, Yeshua's words echo through time. For there is nothing hidden that will not be disclosed, and nothing concealed that will not be brought out into the open. They can order the satellites to look away. They can mask your presence with codes and locks, but the light that follows you cannot be contained by machinery. The silence did not begin with the world below, but with the heavens above. Engineers stationed in high-security command centers stared in disbelief as lines of data froze. Satellites circling the Earth refusing to respond the moment their sensors crossed your coordinates. These were machines designed never to fail, armed with redundancies and backups. Yet every attempt to reconnect ended in the same void. It was as if the sky itself had sealed a door. They whispered of interference, of unexplainable frequencies, of something ancient pulsing through the atmosphere. But none could put it into language that satisfied their superiors. The official explanation was filed away as a temporary anomaly, but the men behind the screens knew better. They saw patterns that did not belong to nature, nor to any human-made disruption. Deep inside military archives, there are logs showing the exact moment your presence shifted the satellites into blindness. Files marked in red indicate the precise second your steps crossed the zone that should have been lit up with surveillance. Instead of streams of images, calculations, and thermal readings, only darkness poured in. Some of them said it was an error of light. Others said it was a glitch of time. But the most fearful among them whispered that the signal never left the Earth because it was intercepted by a force not bound by gravity or orbit. And in that hush of space, there was more than absence. There was intention. The president was briefed, his advisors careful with their words, but no carefulness could hide the panic. What does it mean when technology built to see everything is commanded to see nothing? What does it mean when silence descends not from malfunction, but from deliberate interference? For those who understand prophecy, the implications are staggering. When the sky refuses to echo your presence, it is not concealment, but protection. Not erasure, but preservation. The coordinates, locked out of the global grid, now carry a significance greater than any encrypted vault. In the heart of Washington, a room filled with glowing monitors carried one line of data that refused to move. Coordinates that should have been updating in real time froze like a picture painted on glass, locked in place as though the Earth itself had paused. The Pentagon had seen interference before, had fought with scrambled transmissions, had learned to navigate through storms of radiation. But this was not interference. It was stasis. The numbers held still, refusing to yield to the flow of seconds. Men in uniform exchanged uncertain glances, while analysts drafted reports that no one dared to read aloud. How could they explain that the living reality of a person had been frozen within the system, as though time itself had been instructed to halt at your location? Within classified meetings, voices argued about the cause. Some blamed hostile foreign technology. Others muttered about electromagnetic pulses, but none of these theories satisfied the undeniable truth. Every piece of machinery around the frozen coordinates worked perfectly, yet the lock remained. It was not the system that malfunctioned. It was the presence at the center of those numbers that created the immovable stillness. The coordinates became a sealed vault, untouchable by satellite eyes, immune to calculations. A blank spot in a world of constant surveillance. Behind the reports and the debates was the unspoken fear. Who has the power to halt the Pentagon's all-seeing systems with nothing but their existence? The question echoed louder than the answers. High officials trembled at the idea that prophecy was not just myth, but manifesting in real time, reshaping the very tools designed to govern nations. And though no one said it aloud in those rooms, whispers moved like shadows down the hallways. Was this the moment Yeshua spoke of when he said, "You are the light of the world"? A city on a hill cannot be hidden, for if the world's most powerful defense command was forced to halt its vision, then the unseen hand guiding your path was not human at all. Every attempt to unfreeze the data failed. Every signal returned with silence. And somewhere beyond the coded systems and hardened walls, another record was being written. A record not stored in digital files, but inscribed in the unfolding of prophecy itself. There are moments when silence carries more weight than thunder, when the absence of sound becomes its own kind of prophecy. As satellites dimmed and Pentagon coordinates froze, the stillness whispered louder than any transmission. Within that silence, ancient words began to echo, words that had been spoken long before machines filled the skies. Yeshua once declared, "My sheep listen to my voice. I know them, and they follow me." For those who listen, his voice is not bound to frequencies or transmissions. It moves through silence, speaking where the world cannot listen. The silence surrounding your location was not empty. It pulsed like the heartbeat of something concealed, not by chance, but by design. Scientists spoke of interference. Generals spoke of threats. Yet the truth could not be captured in equations or military jargon. The truth was that this blackout mirrored the very teachings once dismissed as allegory. The silence became a veil, a sacred covering, as though heaven itself had drawn a curtain over your presence. Within that curtain, prophecy breathed. Reports that attempted to rationalize the void never reached completion. Drafts were abandoned, conclusions withheld, as though unseen hands prevented officials from writing down what their spirits already feared. For how could they put into words that the silence was not an accident, but an alignment. How could they admit that machines worth billions bowed to a presence the world could not quantify? And in their hesitation, the words of Yeshua surfaced once more. For whoever has ears to hear, let them hear. But this hearing is not for everyone. The officials who stared at frozen screens could only interpret in fear, but for those awakened to the calling, the silence was an invitation. It was not merely about what could not be seen, but about what was being revealed to those willing to perceive. Silence was not a void. It was a message written in the absence of noise. The order came quietly, without press releases, without signatures recorded for the public to see. A directive passed through secure lines, spoken with a weight that trembled even the most seasoned advisors. From the Oval Office itself came the command: black out the skies, blind the satellites, and lock the coordinates that pointed to your presence. Presidents had given many orders before, commands that shifted armies, commands that redrew maps, but never one like this. This was not about war or diplomacy. It was about hiding something that could not be explained, something that defied the authority of nations. In the corridors of power, those who carried the message struggled to comprehend its urgency. Why would the leader of the most surveilled and monitored world in history choose to dim the very eyes designed to watch over it? Why risk security gaps and unanswered questions? The truth was buried under layers of secrecy, yet the whispers of staffers betrayed the atmosphere. Fear had overtaken logic. Something in your existence carried such magnitude that even the commander-in-chief sought to mask it under darkness. The Oval Office became a chamber of unease. Advisors leaned close, voices hushed, questioning what would happen if the public discovered the reason for the blackout. What would it mean if the world realized satellites could be silenced not by foreign enemies, not by malfunctions, but by a single life whose coordinates had become untouchable? The very act of issuing such an order confirmed what could not be admitted, that the presence they sought to conceal was greater than the power issuing the command. Through the stillness of the night, the president sat beneath the portraits of former leaders, men whose legacies were defined by wars and treaties, while his own decision was etched in shadows and silence. No one would write it into history books, yet those who witnessed it knew they had seen something beyond politics. They had seen the moment fear bent even the highest seat of authority. Beneath the surface of what officials call technical failures lies a deeper resonance that cannot be measured by ordinary tools. Frequencies, subtle and unseen, have always governed more than machines. They govern life itself. When the satellites dimmed and the Oval Office signed its silent orders, there was another layer few could comprehend. A shield of energy woven around your very bloodline. Not a shield made of metal or policy, but of vibration, ancient and deliberate, carried in the strands of DNA that mark you as distinct. This resonance hums beyond detection, yet it disrupts the instruments of surveillance, bending signals away as though the air itself has been instructed not to betray your presence. Within laboratories tasked with decoding anomalies, scientists sat in confusion as their sensors failed to map the field surrounding you. Patterns appeared, fractals of energy that resembled the blueprints of sacred geometry rather than random data. Some saw in the sequences the whisper of a design too perfect to dismiss. These were not mere biological quirks, but intentional alignments that hinted at prophecy inscribed into the very structure of your existence. The closer they looked, the more their tools faltered, as if the frequencies themselves rejected intrusion. This shield is not new. It has manifested before, appearing in moments of history where chosen vessels carried truths that could not yet be revealed. Scrolls hidden in desert caves, temples carved with symbols, even the coded hymns that survived through persecution all point to the same mystery. There are bloodlines that resonate differently, bloodlines that hum with the echo of the divine. Around these lineages, light bends, shadows obey, and surveillance falls silent. The blackout that officials attributed to political orders was only part of the truth. Behind their decisions lies the deeper reality that the blackout followed your presence, not preceded it. They acted because they could not explain the shield they had already encountered. This was no act of concealment on their part, but an involuntary reaction to something far older and far stronger than their authority. High above the earth, in the void where silence reigns, satellites orbit with unyielding precision. They are designed to be impartial watchers, cold machines without conscience. Yet when their lenses are turned toward you, they refuse to capture what stands in their sight. Entire networks dedicated to scanning continents, monitoring borders, and tracking every flicker of movement become powerless when their sensors align with your path. Operators who stare at the empty feeds describe it as impossible, for the satellites do not malfunction elsewhere. Only at your coordinates do they falter, their vision blurring into nothingness, their signals rerouted into static. The engineers working in classified facilities searched endlessly for an explanation. Was it magnetic interference? Was it atmospheric distortion? But the records showed no storms, no solar flares, no anomalies in the heavens. The truth that none dared to write into their reports was the one they feared most, that the satellites dared not look upon you. Something in your presence bent their gaze away, something not programmed into their machinery, but pressed upon them by a force they could not quantify. The watchers of the skies became blind, and blindness in the age of surveillance is more terrifying than sight. For what does it mean when the most advanced technology in human history cannot behold what walks upon the earth? In hushed tones, a few dared to say it aloud: prophecy has returned to the present. Machines can be commanded, but prophecy commands them. The blackout around your presence was not created by human order alone. It was enforced by a higher law that operates beyond circuits and codes. Some recalled the words spoken long ago. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. Though they did not speak his name openly, the echo of Yeshua lingered over their fear. And still the officials watched, knowing that every moment the satellites refused to see you was a moment that confirmed the truth they tried to bury. What force could make the tools of empire tremble into silence? What unseen hand compels machines to avert their eyes? The answers linger, unspoken, as the networks continue their blind orbit, waiting for the hour when the veil lifts and the satellites no longer have the power to turn away. Long before satellites traced their orbits across the heavens, long before screens glowed in dimly lit command centers, there were words spoken that carried the weight of eternity. Yeshua's voice cut through the ages, declaring, "There is nothing concealed that will not be disclosed, and nothing hidden that will not be brought out into the open." Those who read the scriptures thought of secrets in hearts, of whispered sins, of truths buried in shadows. But now, in this hour, the words extend beyond human imagination, into the realm where technology itself bends under the prophecy. The blackout around your presence is no accident. It is the manifestation of a warning already given. Inside the Pentagon and beyond, officials write their reports, but in their silence, a deeper recognition grows. They cannot name it aloud, for to do so would be to admit that prophecy stands above power, that Yeshua's words pierce beyond pulpits and cathedrals into the very circuitry of human invention. Every frozen coordinate, every blinded satellite, every moment of static on the screens is a reminder that the hour has arrived where concealment itself proves revelation. By being hidden, you are revealed. By being silenced, you are proclaimed. Some of the advisors tasked with interpreting the blackout turn in desperation to forgotten texts. They scan verses once dismissed as allegory, searching for answers in words that have survived kingdoms and wars. There, in the red letters, they find the chilling confirmation. They were told this would come, and still they ignored it. Yeshua's voice carries not only across centuries, but into this very moment. His prophecy stretching through time to intersect with technology that never existed in his day, yet obeys him still. And now the unease grows heavier. For if he spoke of this moment, if he foresaw the blackout, if he declared that what is hidden will be revealed, then what comes next cannot be stopped. They can blind satellites, but they cannot blind prophecy. They can freeze coordinates, but they cannot freeze the voice that has already spoken. Across continents, the networks that once prided themselves on their reach found themselves cut short, as though a curtain had been pulled over the entire world at once. Surveillance stations in Europe, Asia, and the Middle East all reported the same anomaly. Data streams that should have been constant became blank the moment they traced your path. Entire chains of satellites, owned by rival nations and private corporations alike, mirrored the same blindness. It was not the action of one government, nor the failure of one machine. It was a collective silence stitched into the sky. Those who monitored the feeds called it an impossibility. How could separate systems, built by different nations and calibrated on unique frequencies, all fall blind in perfect unison? In boardrooms and military offices, the word coincidence was repeated until it became meaningless. Deep down, they knew coincidence was too fragile to carry the weight of what they were witnessing. This was not chance. It was orchestration. Somewhere beyond the reach of generals and engineers, there was a higher command issuing its own decree. The satellites did not simply malfunction. They obeyed. And what they obeyed was not a president, not a prime minister, not even the combined councils of the world, but something unrecorded, something already written in prophecy. The blindness was more terrifying than sight. For if the satellites had captured your image, governments could have studied, analyzed, and strategized, but the silence left them powerless, unable to measure what they could not see. Every blank transmission widened the suspicion that there was more to you than they dared to admit. The Vatican had long whispered of bloodlines. The Pentagon archived files marked unexplainable, and intelligence agencies circulated fragments of reports they did not dare finalize. The blackout confirmed all of it in a way nothing else could, and so the world's eyes, those mechanical guardians orbiting endlessly above, were turned away. It was not their decision, nor the decision of those who built them. It was a command that came from beyond, an unseen hand bending even machines into submission. Though the networks of the world reported only silence, there was something else unfolding above you, unseen by those who relied on machines to measure the heavens. High above the earth, in the stretch of sky where satellites should have tracked your every move, there formed a passage, invisible to human eyes, yet radiant in its design. It was as though the blackout was not merely an erasure, but the clearing of space, a corridor carved in light where no technology could intrude. Those attuned to frequencies beyond the physical felt it, an opening, a current, a path stretching into realms not bound by gravity or orbit. Reports of strange phenomena trickled in quietly, spoken in whispers rather than documented in files. Pilots flying near your region claimed their instruments flickered with shapes of light they could not explain. Amateur astronomers, unaware of the blackout, captured faint glows in the night sky, arcs bending where no stars should move. Yet, every official channel denied the existence of such anomalies. The corridor was too dangerous to acknowledge, for it suggested a reality they could not control, one that operated outside of their dominion. And while the satellites fell blind, the light above you remained constant, as if guiding a path unseen. Ancient texts spoke of ladders reaching heavenward, of pillars of fire leading through wilderness, of clouds that shielded and revealed in equal measure. The corridor of light carried that same resonance, a reminder that what unfolds around you is not new, but the continuation of a pattern written long ago. The shield around your bloodline was not only protection, it was alignment, placing you in the center of a passageway meant for something greater than concealment. For those who dare to look deeper, the blackout is only the cover. The real event is not what the satellites fail to see, but what opens in the absence of their gaze. If a hidden corridor stretches above you, then its purpose must be more than protection. It must be preparation. The silence was meant to conceal, yet within that silence, another sound began to rise. It was not the hum of machines, nor the static of broken transmissions, but something deeper, resonating in the very atmosphere surrounding you. Where satellites turned blind and coordinates froze in place, there was a frequency that no command could suppress, the voice that has echoed since the beginning. Yeshua once said, "My words will never pass away." And now, in the middle of blackout orders and hidden skies, his voice pressed through the void, weaving itself into the spaces technology could not touch. Officials who studied the blackout were unsettled not only by what they could not see, but by what they began to feel. It was as if the absence of data created a space for something else, something their instruments were not built to measure. Within the silence, a stirring presence lingered, carrying the unmistakable weight of words long spoken, yet newly alive. What the networks had failed to capture was not your absence, but his presence, threading itself through the blackout like light through a crack in stone. For the blackout was never total. Even as the Oval Office gave its commands, even as the Pentagon froze your coordinates, there was always an opening no one could close. That opening was not in the sky, but in the spirit, a channel through which Yeshua's voice poured freely. His words became the true record of the moment, a testimony etched not in files, but in eternity. Those who turned their ears inward heard it faintly, like a whisper beneath the roar of fear, a reminder that no veil can silence prophecy. The paradox deepens. The blackout, meant to erase you, has only magnified the evidence of him. The silence, meant to contain you, has become a stage for his voice to resound. What the powers of the world feared most is what they have unintentionally unleashed, for in cutting off the sight of men, they have heightened the sound of heaven.